charmed life, as you see. Must be a charmed life, you're with me. I never dreamed in all of my palmiest days, with you skies, I view skies as blue skies. Wherever I gaze, a child of fortune and for true. I've got a fortune, I've got you. It's nice to know that there are two as happy as we, and that you can lead a charmed life with me.
My name is Russell, sometimes Russ Garcia.
My name is Gina Garcia, and I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
And I was born in Oakland, California, because I wanted to be near my mother. Can you cut things out? Music, 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 nothing but music. I lived and breathed music since I was a tiny child.
And as a little child, I used to sing in the pizza parlor. My grandfather used to get me up because I could sing in Italian, and it was a lot of fun. And so my love for music started way back then.
My brother brought home an old cornet that he bought for $5, held together with sellotape and Band-Aids. I quick learned to play it, so my folks got me a better instrument. Then we formed a little band in junior high school. I wanted to write music, so I went down and bought a couple of piano copies of popular songs at that time. I put everything in the piano part I could into the band, and it sounded horrible. And so I started analyzing. I'd study printed music, and I'd listen analytically to music. And pretty soon I got so I could write a good arrangement, just on trial and error. I've learned to write music for orchestra down without using the piano. Everybody who's seen a movie thinks the composer's got to play at the piano and write it down. It's a language. You can write down what I say, what you say. I can write down what I think. Well, I can do that with music. It's just another language. Anything I hear in my head. But I can hear the whole orchestra in my head, and then I can write it down on paper. Of course, I've studied a few years. I've been writing music for 80-some years. I started writing when I was about 9 years old.
Well, actually, I was out with a friend of Russell's.
Used to be a friend of mine.
And Russell had been working at this dance hall for about 3 months, and it was during that time that I actually got to meet him. Back in Los Angeles, now 1949, and he was playing trumpet in the band.
And this fella that I knew, very briefly, I'd met him a few times, brought Gina in dancing. When I saw her, I nearly fell off my chair.
I saw you and my heart skipped a beat, felt a thrill from my head to my feet. And for some reason, he must have been very attracted to me, because I didn't know him from Adam, and he didn't know me from Adam. My date had to go to the little boys' room and left us alone.
That was his mistake.
And so as a result, of course, Russell asked me for a date. And I think I was just so shocked, I said, okay.
I had 4 brothers, no sisters. So I didn't know anything about girls. Gina's father didn't want us to get married because, first of all, I wasn't a good Italian Catholic boy, and I'd been married before, and I had 2 children. Gina was just a child then. I didn't realize it. If I'd really known how old she was, I would have run like a scared rabbit. She made a true statement. She said, I'll be 20 on December 4th. She didn't say what year.
Well, when we actually got married, I was 21. Our daughter was 10. She had just had a 10th birthday in October, and David was 11.
And then I chased her until she caught me. But Gina was the perfect wife for me. Still is.
We had music all the time, yes. That was one of the things I think that really endeared us maybe to some of the people. Everywhere we went, we would sing and get people to sing with us. Often we would start children's choirs, you know, on every island.
Formed the first Baha'i choir here in Samoa. Of course, they all sang Toko Zani and Love Your Neighbors and Friends. We've been Baha'is 50 years.
As we were studying the faith and we were getting very close, we couldn't sleep at night. We'd come home, you know, like from our study classes, even fireside, and we would be so stimulated. You know, I used to say I could feel the blood going right through my limbs. It was a very, how do I describe it? An unusual sensation.
I was in the American infantry in World War II. I said if I ever got out of there half sane and alive, I was going to find answers. So I was searching into everything to do with world peace. Then our daughter's
ballet
teacher handed us a book. And she said, Russ, I know you and Gina are interested in this kind of thing. Read this book. It was The New Era, and I loved a lot of things I read, and I disagreed with a lot of things I read. So I went to one of these firesides. I came home about 2:30 in the morning. I'd kept those poor people up so late with questions and arguments.
In fact, we didn't want religion. I have to go back to that. We wanted a pattern for life. Not only did we go to the informal firesides where we we would hear someone give a very interesting talk and people would ask questions, there would be discussion. My attraction to the Baha'i faith was not because of, even though its main thing is peace, I was more interested from the spiritual progress of the soul. That's really fascinated me even when I was a child.
This universe is so fantastic, it's so orderly. All these planets and stars swinging around in such order that I knew there had to be some intelligence, something behind it. All my life I believed in some force.
I always thought of God as really an unknowable essence.
You know, in fact, I think it's the only thing that could bring world peace. Could bring the religions together, the races together, the countries together.
I honestly wish I could say I had a wonderful revelation, but I didn't. I only know I woke up and I said to Russell, I've decided I'm going to become a Baha'i, just like that. And he said, oh, that's great.
I didn't tell her I was going to become a Baha'i too. So she's actually 10 minutes older than I am, if you'd believe that, as a Baha'i, of course. So I went to university for a year, and I wasn't really learning anything. It sounds unhumble, doesn't it? But the teachers there had learned out of the books, and they were teaching out of the books, and I was already a professional. I could compose and I could arrange, and they couldn't. So after a year I gave up and I went on the road with the big bands. That was a big band era. I don't know where I learned to read music. It seemed like I've been able to read music as a small child. At school, the teachers were kind of astounded because I could read a tenor part or an alto part from the music and sing it. There were two wonderful musicians at the high school and took me under their wing, and I was taught harmony, counterpoint, orchestration. I got to conduct the orchestra in high school. I got to write pieces for the high school orchestra, and they would play them. And I was so fortunate. You know, when you're young, you write music or do these things, I think, because you'd like to be famous or rich. But after becoming a Baha'i, your goals change completely. Now, I'll only write something if I think it's going to help build a beautiful world for the people of every racial background, religion, country. And with a goal like this, it makes work such a joy.
O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendour. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom? Rejoice. To the court of holiness I summon thee. Abide therein, that thou mayest live in peace forevermore.
Who are the breathless hush of evening that trembles on the brink of a lovely song?
During that recording we had an orchestration that someone else had written, which wasn't quite up to scratch. And Russ said, look, Tim, if you want, I'll write another arrangement for you tonight. I've got to take Gina out for her birthday dinner, but after that I'll do it when I get home. Most orchestrators take several days to imagine how they're going to write a song. Russ took Gina out for her 70-something.
70th.
They got home at 8 p.m. and Russ sat down with his pencil and some paper and wrote this orchestration for Charlie Chaplin's song, Smile, and slid it under my door at 11 p.m., which is, for those who know how the process works, that's kind of a miracle. And my conductor, when we started conducting the first few bars, just turned to me and said, you know, what can I say, the guy's a genius.
I've never worked in my life. I write music and they give me money for it. Which I don't refuse. I studied symphonic composition all my life. Jazz was all around me, so I had to become proficient in both fields. I am so lucky. I have a beautiful wife that helps me all the time in my career. I have my Baha'i faith, which inspires me, and I've earned my living this way. And I was so fortunate to be able to work with all of the greatest artists of my era. I did albums, 3 albums with Louis Armstrong, and I conducted for him at the Hollywood Bowl. I worked with Ella Fitzgerald albums, Sarah Vaughan, Sammy Davis Jr., Mel Torme, Anita O'Day, and jazz artists like Oscar Peterson.
It's just a thrill to be on stage and look over and see the maestro standing there conducting his four-trombone signature band. It's a thrill.
After a while, I worked with Harry James and Bob Crosby and Sam Donahue and some of the well-known bands of that era.
I remember one of the lunches I went to at Gina and Russ's, and I went off to use the bathroom. Just as I was exiting the room, I heard this voice say, "Mention my name, you'll get a good seat."
My CV goes on for pages, and I scrapped it because nobody would believe it. That's Charlie Chaplin. I scored the film Limelight with him. He wrote the main themes. He didn't write them. He played them with one finger on the piano, you know. Da 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 dee. That's his melody. Beautiful. But he, of course, couldn't score for a 65-piece orchestra to fit the timing and the moods of scenes. So that's where I came in.
I knew Russ Garcia for many years, and I know of the vast amount of awards and accolades he received over those years. But there's one award that he never really liked to mention, that he won an Oscar for the arranging and scoring the music for Limelight for Charlie Chaplin. Due to a mix-up, The Oscar was actually never awarded to him. It was awarded to a different Russell by mistake.
He could bring music out of people that they didn't know they had it in them. That was his gift to me. Just amazing.
Russell came to the house of worship and he says, oh, we need a choir. And there were these people around, you know, he says, come here. And he says, now you sing do, 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 and you sing dee, 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 and you sing ha, 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 ha. And then he says, all together now. And you know, we sounded great.
You know, I think a band or an orchestra is one of the highest forms of cooperation that mankind really knows. Everybody's got to play his individual part right, and the sum of the parts, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. If we could get the countries in the world, the governments in the world, the races, the religions all to cooperate like this, we'd have that beautiful world in no time.
Unity being the part of the Baha'i faith is very, very much where Russell comes from, and basically he's a very unifying force both in his music and as a human being. Incredible musician, incredible man, and for 95 he's got the wits of an average 70-year-old man, and you'd never guess he was 95. And the funny thing is, at rehearsal we were there for nearly 5.5, 6 hours, and while the band was collapsing at 95 he was still standing ready to conduct the next tune. Incredible.
Unforgettable, that's what you are.
Music was everything. To him, he'd go to a Baha'i function, if it just had music and nothing else, no consultation, no prayers, he'd be really happy. Yeah, he wanted to dominate everything with music. He was a music man, eh?
You want my gorgeous young Italian wife. She's only 80.
I often worked 17-hour days, and luckily I had a good wife. I could sit there and write, and she would bring me a cup of coffee and a sandwich, and I wouldn't have to stop writing. See, I worked at Universal for 25 years. I was first call arranger there, and I did a lot of composing. I worked on at least 100 films there.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
It's the man that he is. He's been like an uncle to me, really. I've known him almost 10 years now, which I met him when he was 87, you know, and I feel like I've known him for a good chunk of my life. And no, he's just a remarkable man. He's a very warm, funny, but he's an incredible musician. Words fail to, you know, sum him up, really, but he's just become a really good friend, and it's been great to be part of his career and to have him as part of mine, for sure.
I think I was the busiest arranger in Hollywood for many, many, many years, because I was composing and arranging for the film studios also. At Universal, they gave me an office there I could use, and I did many films and many TV series. And I worked MGM, or if Universal wasn't busy for a couple of weeks, I could work Disney or Fox or whatever studio needed somebody. They would feel that I'm worth more than I believe I'm worth.
He's just puts things together you know, he's always got a smile on his face. I don't think he even yells at people like I do, you know, with choirs. He's just easygoing, and now, I mean, his reputation was all true, and everything I'd heard about him was wonderful, you know.
I walked into Verve Records because the owner I heard was in town. I had an idea for a CD, and I started to talk to him. He said, I'd like you to run my company, Verve Records. And we had all the great artists signed, you know, the jazz field especially. He wanted me to be A&R, which is artist and repertoire. You hire the artists, you make the contracts with their agents, you plan all recording sessions, you supervise the sessions, you supervise to see that the artwork is right and the liner notes are correct. And he said, you can still do some of your outside work if you get a film or whatever. In fact, I did the Time Machine film, composed that for George Powell while I was doing this job at Verve.
1, 2, 3.
Mankind is waiting for you to come by along.
Well, I used to do a lot of things for the wonderful Baha'i Seals and Crofts.
Summer breeze makes me feel fine.
And they couldn't read music, but what wonderful, great musicians they were as far as playing, just natural. They'd give me a cassette of what they had recorded, and I have to listen to and write down what they'd done, and then I'd write for the strings or whatever we were going to add and go into the studio. The musicians come in and read it right off. And Jimmy Seal said, Russ, you've done more in 4 hours than we've done in 9 months.
See the smile waiting in the kitchen, who's cooking in the plates for two.
If you know where I can get some humility lessons, I'd appreciate it. 1, 2, you know what to do. I love to do big band jazz, which I got quite a few calls to do this in back of singers and such.
We need a singer.
Rather than splitting it up amongst saxophones and trumpets like a regular big band would do, he used just 4 trombones and a rhythm section, and that allowed him to not only swing hard and produce a large sound equivalent to a big band, but also very melodic tones that allowed him to sort of really accentuate a melody, sort of like a French horn would sound. So it's a really a big spectrum that he gets to cover with those 4 instruments, and no other band leaders that I know of capitalized on that sound.
You are the promised kiss of springtime that makes the lonely winter seem long, poetic. It's a little better than yeah, yeah, baby.
Russell is the most famous person you've never heard of. And that's true to a certain degree. To the general public, perhaps, certainly not to musicians around the world. But for the general public, the one thing that always gets them is when I say Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong, Porgy and Bess. They know it was Russell Garcia. Yes, please.
When they said we want to do Porgy and Bess, Mel Torme and Francis Faye, I said, which one is Porgy?
And the cotton is high.
All this praise, I won't be able to get my head through the door.
We became Baha'is on the Sunday. We met with the local assembly. The very next Friday, we started our first fireside.
As I walked into the house, there was Russ meeting me at the door with his big smile and his big welcome. And I asked him a few questions about what do Baha'is believe about God. And he said, as he usually says, go ask Gina.
Every year now in the Bay of Islands up north in New Zealand here, Gina and I put on a Race Unity Day. The mayor up here loves it so much. She keeps insisting that we do it every year. And we have people from all different countries dressed in their native costumes doing a song or a dance or some kind of thing that's interesting entertainment. And the people love it.
We are sisters and brothers. We are a coat of many colors. You and me and you and me. We are one family.
You know, it started off with Atom Bomb and the orchestra just went crazy. And a voice comes over, annihilation or peace, the choice is yours. And then the choir comes in, peace is possible, da 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 da. But we don't have that, so we're gonna do that with just the pictures, and we've got a lot of famous people who have wonderful things to say about peace.
And we kept our firesides going all the time, even when we weren't there. Sometimes, you know, we had to go to a premiere, or we had to maybe even go to Europe to work or do something. We still would get Baha'is to come and hold that fireside on that particular night, because we had people who would continue to come, sometimes great distances. Sometimes we wouldn't see someone for about a year, and then they would show up, you know. Or Baha'is would come and bring some of their inquirers and their friends, you know, to meet us.
You never knew who you might meet when you went to their house. Gina was always a very, or is, I should say, is a mindful hostess. And coupled with Uncle Russ, well, they're just a dynamic duo, and yeah, we're going to miss Uncle Russ.
They used to have 40 to 80 people at their house at a Baha'i meeting, and I've never had so much fun in my life as at their house.
Here in New Zealand, we followed the advice of Shoghi Effendi because technically we were in a place where we knew no one. The closest Baha'is were about 50 miles away. That was Manu and Margaret Alai, a beautiful family of Baha'is. And we didn't know really that many people here. And so one of the things we did is what Shoghi Effendi said. He said, make friends. Let people know you, get to know them. And we still follow that advice today. So we are constantly, of course, through our music, through the work we do at the schools, through all kinds of things, we are constantly meeting new people. And you have to be able to meet people to share the faith with. And that's the simple truth. And if you don't get out and meet people, you know, if you become so insular, you don't have anyone to tell.
And I said, excuse me, and they turned around and they said, well, I'll be darned, June Ritter, what are you doing here? And I dropped everything, because how can they remember who I was after all these hundreds of people? I was very, very impressed.